Hey, Babette.
I think Craig just called you Babette.
My kids made a fort when I got home yesterday.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it was pretty big. It had like 3 rooms.
Like a blanket fort?
Like a blanket fort, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Couches, yeah. And they got DoorDash delivered somehow.
How did they
no
do
idea.
that?
Yeah, I have no idea. They're literally inside drinking milk and eating sushi. They don't have phones.
The same place that delivers milk delivers sushi.
Everyone.
Apparently they can get an Amex, but I don't know how they got phones.
Quiet in 4.
Milk and sushi, great combo.
3,
Don't knock it till you try it.
2.
The Awful Company presents a truly terrible podcast. Welcome to Nonsense, episode number 11. I'm Jeff Parker.
And I'm CJ Little.
This is our take on the week's business, tech, and entertainment headlines. This time we'll look at the sudden collapse of Silicon Valley Bank, how the UK's online safety bill will make the internet less secure, and what we know so far of the recovery of SVB.
Yay, no aviation.
How's your week going?
Well, apparently all my friends remember not only floppy drives fondly, but the beloved zip drives as well. You remember those?
Sure.
Yeah, I've had several folks lamenting.
I had people mention that to me, why we didn't mention the zip drive.
I had no idea people were that fond of zip drives.
Very popular.
And then the other thing is those evil wedges that keep the seat in front of you from reclining on the airplane that we talked about.
Yeah.
Lots of folks have asked me about those, and I don't really want to share the name because they're like wasps and should be confined to Dante's Inner Ring of Hell.
It's like giving the name of the bank robber. You don't want to really encourage people to do that because they would gain some fame.
Well, apparently we taught a bunch of listeners about this, which concerns me. If not, outright angers me.
So what are they called?
They were originally called knee defenders, but after hearing this podcast, they're changing the name to, quote, ways to get punched in the facers. It's a real true story.
The move to daylight savings time has killed me. Why is no one talking about this?
I told you about this. You wouldn't listen.
Did you watch the Oscars?
I did not.
Oh, my goodness.
Should I have?
No, because it makes no sense. It's like comparing best pictures. They're completely unlike each other, and you're supposed to pick which one's the best one. It's like having what's the best color, red versus green.
Red has won 8 of the past 12 years.
Right. Blue won a BAFTA. It makes
British Color
no
Awards.
sense.
Yeah, I couldn't be bothered.
Let's get to our headlines. Russian jet harasses and then collides with U.S. Reaper drone over the Black Sea.
How did it harass it?
It dumped fuel on it.
Literally, the Russian Air Force is down to using fuel as a fucking weapon.
I guess.
It just dumps fuel on
A
shit?
person in the plane clipped one of the props, which caused us to have to send it down and crash it. This is super dangerous.
Yeah, I bet.
For the jet person.
Of course.
What are you thinking?
You shouldn't.
You'll die. If the drone goes down, it's $32 million worth of parts.
Sure.
And by the way, that was $32 million in 2007.
Yeah, totally. Get this on Amazon for like $100 now.
The guy who's flying it in the Las Vegas, basement somewhere,
Sure.
He's not going to get hurt.
No, he's going to go home and play Fortnite after this.
Exactly.
That's exactly what he's going to do.
That's exactly what he's going to do.
I feel like if we dubbed this show into Russian, they would have known about the pee bottles, and they could have thrown the pee bottles out the window.
Which would have been way funnier.
Way funnier.
A giant seaweed bloom that can be seen from space threatens beaches in Florida and Mexico.
If you're going to threaten any beaches, it should be in Florida.
A raft of brown-colored seaweed in the Atlantic Ocean is so vast it can be seen from space. It spans roughly 5,000 miles. A blanket of Sargassum.
Sargassum?
Yes, that threatens the Gulf of Mexico and shores of West Africa.
Man, in my 20s, I had a lot of Sargassums.
Not 5,000 mile Sargassums.
Well, there was one time I drank a lot of pineapple juice. Why is this news?
It's the largest stretch of seaweed on record.
This is how I know our civilization is going to collapse. We're measuring seaweed. That's like there's
We
somebody's
officially
job.
know too much.
So what's your new gig? I measure seaweed.
Your doorbell has a privacy loophole.
Isn't my doorbell literally a privacy loophole?
Michael Larkin of Hamilton, Ohio, picked up the phone. He answered a call.
Okay.
It was the police. They're suspecting his neighbor of being a drug dealer, something to that effect.
Sure.
And so he gave them 2 hours worth of video footage that they asked for.
Okay.
Next thing is he gets a letter from Ring saying they've subpoenaed all of his videos from both inside his house and his Ring cam. He has 21 cameras.
Wow.
They took all the video for 2 or 3 days, something like that. He had no say in the matter.
That's terrible.
OpenAI releases ChatGPT 4, artificial intelligence that can see.
It's coming.
ChatGPT is a large multimodal model that accepts images as well as text inputs.
That's amazing.
It can actually analyze images.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
What would you feed into this thing? What's the first image you're going to give it?
First thing I would give it was all the video from Michael Larkin's house. Regulators have seized Signature Bank in the 3rd biggest bank failure in U.S. history.
Seems to be a theme.
They're related. It's a synchronous event.
Sure.
I mean, because when Silicon Valley Bank fell, Signature Bank customers got worried and started pulling their deposits from Signature.
How much?
They pulled out $10 billion of deposits, The bank had assets of over $110 billion and deposits of $88 billion
Wow.
at the end of 2022.
Yeah.
The Treasury Department has to make sure these regional and specialty banks can pay their depositors. Otherwise, everyone will bank
At the 3 largest banks in the world.
Yeah,
That's
the
it.
5 largest
Yeah,
banks.
sure.
Include Wells Fargo in there.
Weren't they suspect a while ago, Wells Fargo? They did some
For
questionable
fraud?
practice. Yeah,
They
wasn't
had
the
a fraud
F word?
department. Any kind of fraud you wanted, you could go and get there. It's
It didn't
great.
investigate
No, it's
fraud. They made
wonderful.
fraud. That's great.
Sure.
Because I find myself a lot of times running out of ideas for
If you're
frauds.
stymied for ideas on fraud, you could just go to Wells Fargo. They help you out.
It wasn't an enforcement division. It was a think tank.
It was a think tank.
It was the fraud think tank.
Why do I always think when I see the Wells Fargo horse and wagon thing, I'm always thinking there's going to be like a dog chasing it. Have I mixed up 2 commercials?
That would be even better. There's like a small
Isn't
Pomeranian
there a
chasing
dog food called Chuck Wagon or something?
it. Yes. That's
the
right.
same.
That's totally what that's. Is it still around?
I have no idea. Feds to investigate Tesla after steering wheels fall off 2023 Model Y SUVs.
Turns out if you want to get investigated by the NHTSB, that's how you do it.
It was missing a bolt.
Yeah, you should put all the bolts in the car, it turns out.
When you get the IKEA box and you put it together, and if you have a bolt left over,
Do you think there's a guy at the end of the line at Tesla with like a bag of bolts? He just hasn't told anybody.
he just hasn't found where. Oh, crap! Where do these go?
No, he just keeps forgetting, and he's like, "Fuck! I'm just gonna put that in my pocket so nobody knows. Nobody will know."
taking the bolt home.
And he's like a squirrel, like underneath, like in his locker. It's just full of these bolts. It's just, they're all in there because it's a pain in the ass. He's got to get underneath the steering column, and it's tight in there.
He doesn't know where that bolt goes. He's at the end of the line. He just has a bag full of extra parts.
He's watching
doesn't-
cat videos.
He's not sure what's not screwed
Totally.
in.
I posted on it that says Bobby's special bolts do not touch. There's no idea what they're for.
And just the sound in the distance of cars crashing.
I feel like every Model Y owner should go just yank as hard as they can on their steering wheel to see if it comes off.
The nice thing is, though, if the steering wheel comes off in your hand, that Tesla autopilot will drive you right into a telephone pole.
That's its default mode.
That is exactly what it does. It
Totally.
will drive you into oncoming traffic.
It's really great at doing one thing, killing its
you.
occupants. Yeah, exactly. It just goes into default mode.
Maybe there are some things we shouldn't rush.
Yeah.
Like AI driving.
Or, I don't know, the QC on the fucking steering wheel. Maybe we shouldn't rush that.
You would think we would have figured that out in the 20s.
I mean, I love they've got a team of software engineers, but I don't know, check the bolt. Can you write a program for the robot to check the bolt, please? Is that the easier way to do this? Can you get one of those little German nanobots to crawl in there and look at it? Achtung! There's no bolt! Can we do that? Just something. I don't care. It doesn't have to be. I just send a guy out there to feel for it and see that it's there. But,
Sure.
Oh, nanobot.
No,
I don't
nanobot.
care. Yeah,
Sure, you
totally.
want to automate that stuff. Elon Musk is planning a utopian company town called Snailbrook.
Was the name Jonestown version 2 taken? Was that they couldn't get JonestownV2.com? Was that the problem?
Yeah, Jonestown 2 through 9 are, I think, taken. 10, I think, is available, but they didn't want that.
I think it'd be Jonestown2.co, but nope, nobody wants that.
Woke chatbots are the new culture war. While we're on the subject of Elon Musk, he is tweeting that the danger of training AI to be woke, in other words, lie, is deadly, says Elon Musk last December.
I think it'd be interesting to be able to have different flavors of chatbots and be able to ask them the same question and see how they answer, like having a panel. That could be, as opposed to just having one AI that is God, you have 6 of them, and you ask it the same question, and then
And
you
they
get to
all give
compare
you
the different
different answers.
Yeah, you get like the Wikipedia
based
version.
upon how they're trained.
You get the Onion version. Yeah. You get the super racist version,
Which
like
is
your
would be
crazy
great.
uncle.
So what happens is you then ask it like a question, and then it gives you like a list of links you could go to find the answer to that question.
Oh, that'd be and then like you could have like images with that
And
too.
that's how you could search on things on the web. That would be great.
and then
So
after-
like a question,
yeah.
some sort of query, and then like a
Totally.
list of links.
And then after 10 of them, you hit a button to go to the next 10.
no, the first 10 are ads.
Okay. The first 10 have nothing to do with what you're asking.
Nothing.
I can't wait for the ad chat bot. It's like just a fucking mattress salesman. You're like, you just want to know what year the 747 was invented. And he's like, let's talk about your bed. When's the last time you replaced your king size bed? And you're like, what the fuck? I just want to know when the plane was invented. That's absolutely how this is going to end. Who's going to monetize the shit out of that? It's going to be great.
GM will give the majority of its U.S. team cash if they quit in the next 2 weeks.
Take it.
Take it. Always take it.
Take it.
Because if they're offering you money
The
like
next
this,
offer, just the no money part.
Sure.
Single brook.
Have you seen the F-150s?
I have. I like them quite a bit.
The electric ones.
The Lightning. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're amazing.
Yeah.
Put drink coolers in the front, little ice chests.
Why did they call it the F-150?
I don't know. Ford 150?
I know, but was there Ford 149 that we didn't like as much?
It's like the light bulb. They went through 149 of them until they got to 150.
How did they decide on that?
WD-40.
The other cars they have are like Mustangs and Pintos.
Sure.
They're named after like wild horses or whatever. And the F-150, why? This is a part number. This is not a car.
No. There was a horse called the F-150.
Was there? I missed that.
They just started numbering them after a while.
Just roaming the plains, the
Totally.
150.
The benefit of the F-150 compared to some of the other horses is it didn't explode when you kicked it in the ass like the Pinto.
Like the Pinto?
Yeah.
Mediterranean diet may reduce risk of dementia or Alzheimer's, research shows. Nuts will keep you from being nuts.
Nuts will keep you from being
That's
nuts.
that's their slogan.
Lagoons will keep you from being lagoons.
If you eat a diet full of seafood, fruit, vegetables, nuts, and olive oil, you may lower the risk of dementia by as much as 25%.
That doesn't sound like fun, though.
Pistachios are good.
They're delicious. Don't they also take like 12 gallons of water to make one pistachio?
Takes a gallon of water to make an almond.
Well, I come to you from all my nut advice.
Pistachios give water back to the earth. They're water positive.
You squeeze them.
That's how we get the almonds. The pistachios give them their water.
We should start a pistachio milk farm. I feel like pistachio milk, it would be $26 for an
It
ounce.
would be so expensive.
Only buy it at Erewhon.
Sure.
But it would be amazing.
YouTube is changing its policy on cursing.
Fuck.
Something about the first 7 seconds you're not supposed to cuss a lot. They demonetize you.
Wait.
You can say certain words now and you can't say certain other words. It just sounds complicated.
Sounds like a George Carlin bit. I mean, are there restrictions of the words that I can't use?
There's certain words you have to use, I think. I think that's really how it's going to work.
I would love that.
Yeah.
I could hit that bingo card every single time.
Most profanity used within pre-recorded music or stand-up video content is safe too.
Wait a minute. They're going to make a special carve-out for stand-up?
I don't. How does the AI know this is a clip
So you
from
put me on
stand-up?
so we just need like an AI that just photoshops in a mic stand in front of you and you can say whatever
And then you're
you
good. You
want.
say whatever you want. Putting naughty text in your naughty text. That sounds kind
Yeah.
of sexy.
Yep.
That's even better than curse
That is
words.
that is the fast
curse
track to
words
the
are
sargasm
nothing.
right there.
Now you got the sargasm.
The sargasm. My naughty text straight to the sargasm.
Putting naughty text in your thumbnail or title won't automatically block your video from ad revenue, but it may limit it.
All right.
Some words are considered unfriendly to advertisers.
Or like their competitors' names.
Sure.
Lay's doesn't like when you say Ruffles.
Yes.
Why do we still have, quote, bad words? Why is that still a thing?
I'm still stuck on the phrase naughty text.
You're stuck
still
on
has
it?
me going. Yeah.
It definitely has you going.
What were we saying? Why what? I wasn't listening.
Can't even pay attention now.
I'm sorry, I wasn't listening.
Just wading through a giant pool of sargasm. just thinking about my naughty text and my surrounded by all of this beautiful algae.
Naughty
on
text
the beach
just
of Florida.
has my attention. Starbucks sold 2,000 NFTs in 20 minutes, coffee not included.
Like on every single one of these somebody bought, did they misspell the person's name?
Yes.
That would be great.
I bought one. It says Jess.
Just Jess.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to be honest. I'm not a big fan of NFTs, but I will say this
No.
right here. I would probably buy a Starbucks NFT if it had like some fun misspelling of my name and had like a little drawing on it, like a little cartoon character.
I would totally buy one for that reason. I would also buy it if they labeled it as an NTF. I just want them to misspell something on it.
That would be
Yeah.
actually really funny if they promoted it that way.
Yeah.
Why didn't they do that?
That would be awesome.
Oh my God. They're just like, now get your non-token fungible.
Non-token fungibles available now. Okay, up next, CJ is going to talk about the sudden collapse of Silicon Valley Bank.
Stay awake, everybody.
Hit that button.
Hit the button. Early last Friday morning, March 10th, examiners from the FDIC arrived at the offices of Silicon Valley Bank to assess the company's finances.
Yeah.
Now, generally, this is not a good sign. When they're showing up to just, quote, assess your finances, think they
You're
know
in
there's
trouble.
a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not there as a courtesy call. A couple hours later, California regulators issued an order taking possession of SVB. At the time, this was the 16th largest bank in the country. So, seeing how quickly this transpired, we wanted to provide a briefish synopsis of what happened. And then in my next segment, we'll talk a bit about what the future looks like for banking and some takeaways for us all.
This looks like you're covering a lot of data here. Let me just tell you in advance, I can do my segment shorter if you want to go longer.
Did you pay attention to this when this happened over the weekend? Were you consumed by this?
I wasn't consumed by it, no, but I understand when banks fail.
I could not stop looking at this.
Oh, really?
When this happened. Yeah, I don't know why. I can't tell you why.
You didn't live through 2007, 2008.
I did live through 2007, 2008. I felt like this was it was obviously different.
Yeah.
And I did.
Response time was different.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Right. I mean, this felt like this was like surgical strike.
Yeah,
given
this
how
was
quick this was
impressive. Of course, we just had been through the other one, so we knew.
Absolutely. Well, also convenient that it was at the end of the week because the FDIC only likes to do this shit over the weekends.
Sure.
Which I think is terrible because the interns are getting that. They're like, oh, I'm going to get a government job and work 20 hours a week.
I think it's all hands on deck. There is so much they have to do.
Fucking 72-hour weekend. I mean, there were a lot of folks on both sides not sleeping on this. I spent hours reading tweets and articles on this. I was listening to both public and private conference calls I had access to, just absorbing every sort of view. And there was so much shit that I didn't appreciate going into it.
This is a boutique bank, really. This is a bank that services a lot of venture capital backed firms.
Boutique maybe in clientele, not boutique in size.
Of course.
Right?
Tech is a big industry. Tech's not a small amount of the economy.
Nerds rule the world. But this had real potential of being something devastating for more than just Silicon Valley startups, right? The tech sector at large, if we're not careful. So I thought, okay, for our listeners, we'd start quickly at the beginning, right? So what's a bank?
Oh, that is the beginning.
It is the very beginning. So
Wow.
this was on the 8th day. On the 8th day, there were banks.
Okay.
Banks are effectively facilitators, right? Depositors lend their money to a bank for which they are paid interest, and banks lend that money out again for interest.
For more interest. And they keep the spread.
Well, preferably.
Yeah.
Right? Preferably. So that's how they make money, right?
It's hard not to make more interest than the interest rate you get from your bank.
You would hope that that's the way this is happening. So banks achieve this by leveraging time. Depositors earn a lower interest rate in exchange for being able to withdraw their money at any time.
Right.
Loans earn higher interest rates, but take years to pay back. Right. So this makes great sense. If you want a shorter mortgage, you pay less interest. You want a longer mortgage, you pay more interest. And the reason this works is because ideally, banks have a diverse set of depositors. So those funds are coming and going on an individual account basis. But on an aggregate basis, they stay steady. And that provides stability for those long-term loans. And this is where I think we start to get into trouble with...
Not just loans. In this case, it was a lot of bonds.
Yeah.
Bought
Yeah.
at the top of the market.
What's a common killer of banks, right? That's this quote, bank run.
Yeah.
And this is what happens when a bank does not have sufficient assets to pay back all of its depositors at once, because those assets have been distributed elsewhere, typically as loans. And unfortunately, bank runs tend to develop into snowballs. So when depositors fear that a bank is running out of cash, the rational response is to quickly pull out your funds, which makes the problem worse.
Right.
So, and then these can be contagious, right? If a depositor hears that a bank run happens at another bank, they may start to question the safety of their deposits in their own bank, starting another run.
That's exactly what happened.
Exactly what happened here. So, and this is what happened in the Great Depression, right? We've seen this before. There were 650 banks that failed in 1929, and then more than 1,300 in 1930. In the end, over 9,000 banks would fail in total. And ultimately what stopped this contagion was the establishment of the FDIC in 1933.
Yes.
Which was funded by member banks, right? They insured $2,500 per account. And if a bank went out of business, depositors would still get their money back.
Up to $2,500.
Well, yeah, that was in $1930, which is now, I'm sure,
$250,000.
3
is the
BTC.
limit now.
Yes. After 07, 08, that was raised. By assets, this was the largest failure of any bank since the 07-08 financial crisis, and the second largest in U.S. history behind that of Washington Mutual.
Yeah.
SVB had approximately $209 billion in total assets, $175 billion in total deposits at the end of 2022. WAMU had $300 billion in assets and $188 billion in deposits when it collapsed in 08.
Wow.
You're talking about SVB being basically 2/3 the size, roughly, of WAMU, right? Not small. And they asked me if I could cover all these assets directly, and I said no.
You declined them.
I mean, I would have, but I didn't want to dip into my fund.
No.
My nest egg. Okay, so how did this happen? By the first quarter of 2020, SVB had over $60 billion in total deposits. 2 years later, they had nearly $200 billion in assets.
Okay.
That's nearly a 3.5x growth in 2 years.
Yeah.
Which is madness, right? And many of the depositors were startups, so they deposited their investors' cash straight in SVB. This certainly surged over the past couple of years as much of that money was unleashed during COVID and sort of found its way into the tech sector. But unlike a typical retail bank where you see a business's cash flow come in and expenses go out, or a typical person where their income comes in and their expenses go out, the startups that SVB typically catered to are not profitable. So while they had a huge influx of cash, they'd burn down that cash over time with little to no revenue coming back to the bank.
Right.
Which is kind of important to recognize if you're, running a bank, specifically this bank. Having built a couple of businesses in my day, I can assure you that most all startups, at least the good ones, are focused on solving the problem that drives them, right? They're figuring out the tech, the marketing, the product market fit. They are not concerned with rounding out a couple extra points on their investors' cash in money markets accounts.
Sure.
Nor managing their treasury for this systematic risk. And one of the calls I listened to on Saturday, Mark Cuban summarized this as saying that no startup would assign a probability greater than 0 to losing their cash parked at a bank account, which I generally agree with, right? The U.S. has been so stable, especially in the past decade, that no one's looking at this going, oh, this bank's going to fail.
Right.
Especially not SVB, not a small bank.
Not for depositors anyway.
Not for depositors, yeah. Everyone from the Great Depression is dead.
Okay.
My hunch is they're not well
many of
versed.
them.
They've moved all their assets to crypto by now anyway. All the 113-year-olds. Lots of NFTs.
Wow.
Since 2015, there have been less than 10 banks a year that have failed. All smaller regional banks. And several years there have been 0 failures.
Since 2015, that means nothing.
I know, it's just the past 6 years.
We had a guy who tried to sell us mortgage-backed securities because housing prices had gone up
Sure.
for the last 60 years at the time
Yeah.
he was trying to sell them to us. And we looked at them and they're like, this is ridiculous. This is crazy. Go back 70 years.
Sure.
Go back
Of course.
80 years, 90 years.
course.
Wherever you set the limit is actually where the trouble is.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, look, classically, they've been anywhere from dozens to 50 banks that fail. The 80s were a very bad time for banks
sure.
too, certainly. But I'm just saying in the past 10 years, right, a lot of the folks running these startups haven't been operating for a long time.
Oh, that's true. They've
gotten super comfortable that banking is stable.
Tech people frequently think that they're always going to have jobs and their bank is always going to be stable.
Absolutely.
Because that's all they've seen.
Geek Squad at Best Buy, that's where I'm headed. SVB effectively lent a large portion of their deposits to the federal government in the form of U.S. Treasuries.
Yes.
And to homeowners in the form of agency mortgage-backed securities.
Yes.
While SVB used to primarily lend out money on short-term durations, in 2021, they made a strategic shift to longer-term securities in search of more yield.
More money has been lost reaching for yield than at the point of a gun.
Oh, yeah, for sure. In retrospect, this was the critical mistake by SVB's management, right? They did not have the luxury of time on their side. And as interest rates rose, VC funding dried up, fewer deposits came in, the market value of the securities that they held plummeted. Why would I buy a 10-year treasury paying out 1% when I could buy one from the government for 3.5%?
They pretty much bought at the top of the market.
Yep.
Also, this is a classic bank error, and that is lending long while borrowing short.
Yep.
You're going to get squeezed at some point.
Yep. Now here's what's crazy. SVB had technically been insolvent for months. The company had more assets than liabilities, but a huge chunk of those assets could not be liquidated without taking a major loss.
Right.
So this wasn't really a surprise to anybody.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily a problem, though, because those securities would mature in time, paying back their value in full. Stockholders would take a hit,
Sure.
but the bank wouldn't implode. The market clearly knew this as SVB stock lost 66% of its value last year.
Right.
So they got one hell of a haircut. Their deposits have been dropping for 4 straight quarters as tech valuations crashed from the pandemic era highs. Then they plunged faster than expected in February and March of this year, of 2023.
Right.
And that was certainly the accelerant that got us to where we ended up last week. So they had to shore up their capital. They decided to liquidate almost all of the bank's, quote, available for sale securities portfolio and to reinvest the proceeds in short-term assets that would earn higher interest rates and improve the pressure on its profitability. That sale meant taking a $1.8 billion hit. And as the value of those securities had fallen since SVB had purchased them due to surging interest rates.
They aren't getting par value.
So to compensate for this, SVB arranged for a public offering of the bank's shares, led by Goldman Sachs. It included a large investment from General Atlantic, which committed to buy $500 million of stock. So hooray, right? This is good. The deal was announced on Wednesday night, but by Thursday morning, the deal was dead. SVB's decision to sell the securities had surprised some investors and signaled to them that it had exhausted other avenues to raise capital.
Sure.
By lunchtime, Silicon Valley financiers were receiving last-ditch calls from Goldman, which briefly attempted to put together a large group of investors alongside General Atlantic to raise capital, as SVB's share price was tanking. Ultimately, this was not successful.
By the way, the problem is if you call Silicon Valley financiers to try to raise money for your failing bank, those are the people who have money in your
the bank.
failing
Yeah,
bank.
exactly. They're like, wait, you already have my money.
This is a problem.
Yeah. Okay, so this is when the run hit, right? And this is when it started to get a little scary. So while SVB is looking to raise a bunch of capital to shore up their liquidity, some large venture investors, including Peter Thiel's Founders Fund, Union Square Ventures, and Founders Collective, all advised their startups to pull their cash from SVB.
Right.
This was bad, right? This is straight up prisoner's dilemma. And it started the death spiral for the bank. Customers attempted to withdraw $42 billion from SVB in an 8-hour period. This is an absolute death knell.
But think about this. It's because it's a boutique bank. It's catering to a specific crowd.
Yep.
Venture capitalists. Think about a venture capitalist who has 40 to 60 companies in his portfolio.
Yep.
He's going to advise them immediately take all your money out of this bank. All you have to have is 20 venture capitalists, and
There's
you have
a run.
Yes, you have a synchronous event of enormous proportions.
Yep. And that's what happened. By the close of business on March 9th, the bank had a negative cash balance of $1 billion. Not a place you want to be. And it seemed this was sparked by a letter that SVB's CEO, Greg Becker, sent on Wednesday stating that they had suffered a $1.8 billion loss on the sale of these U.S. Treasuries and mortgage-backed securities, and outlined a plan to raise $2.25 billion of capital to shore up its finances. You can see now how these sort of pieces fit together. Also didn't help that on Wednesday, Moody's downgraded SVB's debt, which likely prompted the rush sale in the first place.
Right.
So by Friday, the bank was closed. Wires were not going through, accounts were effectively frozen. Because the bank was insolvent, the only thing we could infer for certain was that account holders would receive up to $250,000 from the FDIC.
Yeah.
That's all we sort of knew for certain at that time. But the problem, especially with this boutique bank, as Jeff mentioned, is that more than 90% of the accounts at SVB exceeded this limit.
Of course.
Many of these are operating accounts for businesses, not personal checking accounts. So without access to these funds, businesses can't function. They can't make payroll. They can't buy goods. They can't pay vendors. And if those businesses can't get access to their capital, the knock-on effects would be devastating to many businesses and many people, many of which have never even banked at SVB.
It's always a giant desk full of dominoes, ready for all of them to fall.
Yep, absolutely. So I heard about businesses themselves, not customers of SVB, that wired funds to their payroll provider. the payroll provider happened to bank at SVB. So when the bank shuttered, all that money was effectively lost.
That's terrible.
So you're trying to make payroll. You've made it. You've paid payroll to your payroll provider. They just happen to process somewhere that you have no idea what's happening, and all your money gets sucked into the void. So it seems easy to believe that the medium and larger customers are virtually all smaller, typically regional banks would quickly flee for the big four banks that we've already determined that are, quote, too big to fail, right? That's what people would do if this were allowed to happen.
Even regional banks are in some way too big to fail. You can't fail your depositors or you have no regional bank system. It will evaporate on you so fast.
And I got to believe if I was certainly operating a business at the moment and I saw a bank the size of SVB, my operating capital there gets sucked out, I'd certainly be going to look to the biggest bank I could possibly go to, right? And not care about any other perks, because without your operating capital, you're dead.
So what happened?
That's a very good question. I'm going to come back to that in my next segment. But first, Jeff's going to talk about the dangers for all of us in the UK's online safety bill.
Yes.
Danger, Jeff? It's a safety bill. It should make us safer, right?
Not so much.
Oh, that doesn't sound good.
A few days ago, there was another round of updates to the UK's online safety bill. Since today is Freedom of Information Day, I thought we might look at what exactly is the UK's online safety bill. In the modern world, it's easy to communicate and send files that are strongly encrypted. That is to say, scramble the data in some way that it can't be correctly reassembled without the key that originally scrambled it.
So like all like A's, I would make L's, and all B's, I would make K's.
Yes, it's ROT 15.
Right.
Yes, that's all it is. It's just a
15.
Caesar cipher.
I never thought about 15. Everybody's been doing 13.
Nobody thinks of that.
You do ROT 15.
Sure. End-to-end encryption is what we're talking about. So encrypted that even the servers that receive and send that data don't have the keys to see what's being sent.
It's all just random bits to them.
Beware, there are apps that call themselves end-to-end encrypted, but keep the keys so the service can read the messages. We're not talking about those apps.
Yeah.
Some very sophisticated apps even use a new key for every single message. So if you can crack one message, you don't automatically get them all.
Isn't the key derived from the previous key, though? Or do they use like some weird, I don't know how those work.
Don't quote me on it, but I believe it's a one-way hash. The very best of these apps can't even see the metadata, nor your social graph. They are literally designed so that only the communicating parties can see anything at all. They collect no data, let alone useful data that they could sell. The goal is privacy, not profit.
Well, that's very convenient.
By the way, that's not WhatsApp.
No, that would be the opposite of that.
They are collecting your social graph. They want to know who you're talking to and when you're talking to them.
They also slurp up your entire contact book when you turn that thing on. So in Facebook, they couldn't get outside of the ecosystem. People that are outside of Facebook that hadn't already come in, right? Its user growth slowed. They couldn't get to them. WhatsApp had it all.
Now you're right.
So they bought WhatsApp and they're like, oh shit, I know Jeff and CJ are both friends on Facebook. I can see all the other people that they know in their contact book. I think that was the real Trojan horse of that. Nobody had done it before.
Now, no one is in favor of child porn. How do we keep our kids safe? How do we prevent online bullying, hate speech, online terrorist groups from organizing, even scam ads? These are all the things that the UK's online safety bill are designed to combat.
Yep,
that sounds like
absolutely.
important things. In order to do that, they would like to weaken encryption so that they can read text messages and files that you send. That's the whole thing.
It turns out it's a baby with the bathwater right there.
Governments have long been seeing encryption as an obstacle to law enforcement investigations. Do you remember the Clipper chip?
I do remember the Clipper chip.
Governments come up with names like Golden Key, a mythical key that only the government has that allows them to scan every message, but magically never escapes to the rest of the world.
Yeah, that never works.
But what if the government is Russia, Iran, China, their governments? Do they get the magical key too?
Nope.
The Golden Key and the Clipper chip took hackers exactly 12 days to crack. It was a tough one.
They were all playing Doom and drinking Mountain Dew.
Once the magic key gets out, the fun thing about that is now everyone can read all of the messages.
Yes, turns out your encryption is actually plain text.
The online safety bill is an effort by a succession of conservative prime ministers of the UK aimed at addressing illegal and harmful online activity, right? Makes sense. Sounds like a nice goal. It proposes scanning private encrypted messages. More accurately, proposes the companies that make end-to-end encrypted apps be able to scan the messages from their users before they get sent. Everywhere, anytime the government requests.
Well, that sounds like exactly what I don't want.
That's kind of the opposite of encryption. Just because you're doing it before the text is encrypted doesn't mean you're making the data secure.
Exactly.
This would affect WhatsApp, Signal, Element, which operates the decentralized Matrix protocol, and eventually end-to-end encrypted email providers like Proton and even VPNs. You might ask why Apple iMessage, supposedly end-to-end encrypted, isn't included here. Yeah, You should ask that.
Well, yeah, because the key sits somewhere else.
In 2017, Rod Rosenstein coined the phrase responsible encryption. Do you remember this?
I do.
In other words, your messages are encrypted, but the benevolent government can still read them. Rod was the Deputy Attorney General appointed by Donald Trump. In 2013, Google's then CEO Eric Schmidt famously said, if you have something you don't want anyone to know, maybe you shouldn't be doing it in the first place.
What a terrible, terrible quote, Eric.
So maybe Rod and Eric would be willing to publish their email passwords, maybe their banking credentials. Let us all take a look.
Yeah.
Schmidt could make public the text messages relating to his various extramarital affairs.
Sure.
If you have something you don't want anyone to know, maybe you shouldn't be doing it in the first place. So let's see those things.
Yeah, sure. I've read a book about this. It was science fiction 100 years ago.
The draft legislation, which has reached the committee stage of scrutiny in the House of Lords, puts a duty of care on digital services to protect users from a range of harms and contains the powers for the UK's internet regulator, Ofcom, to block non-compliant services in case of serious infringement, in addition to a regime of hefty fines up to 10% of global turnover. Even the threat of jail time for law-breaking senior execs under recently expanded criminal liability.
That sounds like some real hefty...
This thing has serious
sticks.
teeth. They are not fooling around.
I'm also mildly disappointed in our British brethren for naming this thing Ofcom.
Not a very good name, is it?
No, they're usually great at naming shit.
Yeah.
They didn't regularly name it Ofcom? Why does a U.S. company have to follow a UK law?
That's a great question. Iran has blocked many encrypted messaging service, and we've set up proxy servers to help the citizens of Iran continue to communicate privately.
That sounds like a good thing.
It is a great thing, but why in the case of the UK? I guess because we're more friendly, we'll uphold their laws. They'll be able to take 10% of your gross revenue.
Sure. So I understand the intent of this, right?
Yes.
The intent, I could even say, makes sense.
Of course.
How do you execute on this, right? How do you implement this?
Your guess is as good as mine. Weaker encryption. I mean, encryption, then once you have weaker encryption, everybody can read the message.
Sure.
You can have client-side capture. That's going to work for about 5 minutes before all of us can read the messages. There's no way to practically do this.
Yeah, I mean, this is not a solvable problem.
Also, the UK is only 2% of WhatsApp traffic. WhatsApp is simply going to block the UK.
Sure.
They'll never notice a difference in revenue.
Yeah.
But the online safety bill isn't the only attack on encryption. A much bigger organization, the European Union, is trying to regulate something similar with the so-called chat control law, which requires encrypted messaging apps to allow authorities to scan private chats for material related to child abuse or terrorism. By the way, there's no way they'll ever limit it to that. As soon as they can get that far, they can scan for anything.
Yeah.
Once you have client-side scanning, you can scan for even things that your political enemies are texting. Sure. The doors are wide open.
Yeah, how do you control that?
Authoritarian countries will certainly take inspiration from these laws. The UK's intentions may be benign, which I don't know they are, but they could be. But the precedent it sets and the technology it uses will absolutely be used for controlling populations and enabling human rights abuses of the worst possible kind.
Of course.
Here's the good news.
Hit me.
Every time large governments have cracked down hard on encryption, researchers have been motivated to burn the midnight oil and make encryption stronger and easier to use. Every time.
Yeah, as they should. That's exactly what they should do.
The important part of this is that there are other ways to catch child pornographers and hate speech and all of those sorts of things.
All that.
Actual.
You know what we need? Matlock. That's how we're going to catch all these people.
That's how you would catch those people. Traditional policing solves the problem.
Turns out that's
it's more expensive. It is much more expensive than being able to read everything everyone writes, but it's effective.
They, being law enforcement, gets the benefit of these things too.
Right, and you also aren't caught by a zillion false. I'm not sure it actually is more expensive because you're going to get a zillion false flags when you're just scanning data.
Scanning data just sounds like a terrible idea.
If a parent is sending a funny picture of your kid in the bathtub, their kid in the bathtub, to grandma and grandpa, ha ha ha, really funny, and the AI filter looks at it and goes, naked kid.
Sure.
You know, you're going to get a ton of that stuff.
For sure.
Okay, coming up next, CJ is going to talk about what happens to Silicon Valley Bank now.
Very exciting bank stuff. I'm going to hit the button. We talked a bit about how SVB got into this perilous state in the months leading up to last week. Mm-hmm. So what's happened since then? Now, there's a handful of players in this, right? The SVB business has failed.
Yes.
Their shareholders and bondholders' stakes have all been wiped out to zero.
As should be
they
the case.
should, right? This thing was not managed well, in my opinion.
Right.
And
not your opinion.
They should
I think
go to zero.
everyone will agree with you.
I'm trying to be nice. I'm sure. I don't know if Greg would agree with me. Greg might feel like he managed it well. And while it appears that there may be enough assets within SVB to cover all the accounts, if those assets are held to maturity, we would need to inject some liquidity for the accounts that need access to their capital while we wait for the assets to mature. And fortunately, the depositors that place their cash at SVB are going to be made whole by the U.S. government, right? This was announced on Sunday.
Right.
So if you had cash sitting in SVB, you will not lose a penny.
There's not really an option for that, or you don't have a regional banking system.
That's
you
the
don't
problem.
have boutique banks anymore.
That is the problem, right? So what Jeff's saying there is if this did happen, if people that had deposits beyond the FDIC insured limit, if they didn't get all their money back, what would happen with everybody else that has money past the FDIC limits? They would all flee.
It's
for the
not a
large
high
banks.
limit, especially
It's
if you
not a
have
high
a
limit.
business. You hit that limit
Absolutely.
fast.
Okay, so this is the right thing to do, right? The U.S. government backing up the depositors and saying, we're going to inject some liquidity. This isn't going to cost taxpayers money. We're going to end up coming out of this thing whole. That, in my opinion, is the right thing to do. Now, some talking heads are referring to this as a bailout of SVB. I surely don't see it that way.
Oh, the political, circular firing squad has begun.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Right? The minute of, as soon as I smelled it. So SVB had a market cap of about $20 billion before this went down. All that equity, bondholders, everything is going to go to zero. Right? They're wiped out. That's not a bailout. The cash depositors should not be treated as creditors, right? In my opinion, at the end of the day.
Delta Airlines was a bailout.
Could this have been prevented? From my lovely hindsight is 2020 perspective, SVB should have managed their book and their messaging better. And I think that's going to become more obvious as the days go on.
But part of the problem was the type of boutique bank they were.
For sure.
All those people knew each other, and when one got scared, it was easy to make the whole thing fall over.
So I think you got to get in front of that, right?
Or maybe
And
not
use that-
make a bank that has that niche of an audience.
Yeah, that has that much idiosyncratic focus.
Right.
Yeah. So when the bulk of your customers do not provide consistent deposits, maybe you shouldn't go taking out long-term investments with their capital, right? That certainly lit the fuse by switching from short-term investments to long-term investments.
Yeah, that's been a banking problem since the dawn of time.
Yeah, of course. But this one was even more concentrated because most of their capital, right? Forget about customer type. Most of their capital by customer type was relatively, I wouldn't say unique to them. It was consistent with them.
Yes, it's a concentrated one-way flow.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Big money coming in and then slow burn on the way out. Well, maybe not that slow in the case of some startups, but burn on the way out.
But in aggregate.
Yep. So in a series of calls with their customers and investors, the SVB CEO told people not to panic. If everyone is telling each other SVB is in trouble, that would be a challenge, he said. Now, I don't know about you, but I feel like the worst thing to tell somebody if they're thinking about panicking is to not panic.
Sure.
Like actually tell me.
I'm not going to panic. I'm just going to come get my money.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm going to be the first in
panic.
line.
I'm just coming right over.
I would think, I don't know, maybe communicating what you're doing ahead of time to them, maybe even, I don't know, privately would help. And
no, that just lets that person be the first person in line to get their money out.
Sure. All that risk that had been building on their balance sheet for more than a year became a reality. If deposits fell further, SVB would be forced to sell its held-to-maturity bond portfolio and recognize a $15 billion loss, moving it even closer to insolvency.
Right.
He didn't say much more than that it seems, and it just really didn't feel to me like it was the best approach. And I want to believe that if you got the major influencers of SVB's largest depositors, so in other words, the venture funds invested in these businesses, if you got them on a conference call, you'd be able to convince them that sticking together means everyone survives. Sadly, I'm not sure that approach would have worked.
Yeah.
Right? This feels more like sort of human nature, dog eat dog, and that the sort of community, quote unquote, that they like to say takes care of themselves and sticks together would not have. And
that's not a community that sticks together and helps each other.
Yeah, it feels a little more cutthroat. They represent that, but it feels a little more cutthroat to me than that. It's hard for me to be angry with the companies that pulled their funds. I'm not even really grumpy about the VCs that pulled their funds because I don't think this was communicated well. Like they were ultimately the nail in the coffin, the last nail in the coffin. But I don't fault them for that. It's not from my view. And it just seems to reason that had SVB's management been more transparent and clear with what was coming, what they had in place, and how they were going to navigate it, they could have convinced people to hang on.
I think that's impossible.
I don't know, because here's why. I think
the minute you say anything about your bank not being in perfectly beautiful, fine shape, everybody goes, you know what? There's a guy next door I can bank with.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that. But I think the problem was, I'm making some assumptions here.
Yeah.
But this was really a duration and a profitability problem that should not have been a viability problem.
That's frequently the case with banks.
But how you handle that, right? They didn't take a haircut. Now, maybe that means their CEO gets on a plane to Qatar and says, look, I worked out a deal. I've got $8 billion in cash. I lost 30% of the business.
Yeah.
But we're going to survive.
Yeah.
Right? Like there was a path on that, I think. But I don't feel like that happened. I don't know what actually happened. Maybe it came on too fast. Who knows? But
when a run happens, it happens faster. It's absolutely bizarre herd psychology.
Well, yeah, maybe they should have been in front of it before that run happened, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's like, I feel like you're talking about the 16th largest bank in the U.S. This isn't like,
it's not a mom and pop bank for sure.
Some dude in Boise trying to figure out how to raise some money for his potato farm.
Right.
Like, I feel like there was a path on this. So And ultimately it was the management decisions that dug this hole. There's no doubt in my mind about that. And that's ultimately what killed it. So what's going to change, right? What can we conclude from this? The FDIC limit, does the U.S. government making all of the depositors, regardless of amount whole, mean that the $250K limit on FDIC insurance has been effectively made unlimited? I don't think so.
Well, it kind of has. That's kind of what this does. Because if you're going to bail out Silicon Valley Bank, whose bank do you not bail out?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, at what size is the moment where you can say these guys can lose their deposits?
It does, but it doesn't too, right? Like, unless they put this in black and white.
You never want depositors losing money.
Yeah, of course. No, I get that. I mean, I do get that. And I'm curious what that does to the banking industry itself. Like, they just get more risky with my money. So I'm presuming there's going to be some additional regulations put on those banks, much like we did on the too big to fail banks in 0708.
We've been taking regulations steadily away from those banks since 2007, 2008.
Well, we added some on, and then we
added them on, and we just chip away at it. It's what we constantly do with banks.
So maybe we should, I don't know, put those back on, some of them, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the answer either. Right? They would just be chipped away.
Now, some folks are sort of implying, or no, some people are directly saying that because the VCs suggested in the public eye that there would be a run on regional banks, that they were trying to force the FDIC's hand into making depositors whole. I think that's insane. Like, this was going to happen, potentially going to happen, whether or not the VCs said it. If those depositors weren't made whole, you don't need a bunch of Patagonia wearing venture capitalists to say, oh, this might cause a run on regional banks.
Sure.
People are going to look at that and go, fuck, I need to get my money to Citi or JP Morgan.
It's why the Treasury has to step in as fast as possible. It's why, the Signature Bank fell as a result of Silicon Valley Bank falling. The dominoes could have just kept falling. They have to step in as fast as possible and say, depositors, you're good. You're golden.
We didn't talk about this, but I am shocked at how quickly they got that done. Like,
they didn't have any choice.
I know, I get that, but like just the sheer logistics of that.
Oh yeah, they were working all weekend.
Like the people they put in play for that are going to be the untold heroes of this whole thing that figured this out.
And by the way, I'm sure there are lots of things that they just glossed over to get there fast enough.
Oh yeah,
let's just make this decision and make it quickly.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so how's this going to affect startups? Well, there's likely no more crazy venture debt, right, and insane valuations for at least a while. So
that's not a bad thing.
No, to me that's a good thing. Absolutely. Yeah. It's going to be a tough time to operate an existing startup, right? Easy capital is going to continue to dry up.
Well, your runway is getting shorter. Your runway is having a 2-year runway. Now you've got 8 months. Especially if you're up and running. If you're already in startup and you're trying to get up in the air, your runway just got shrunk.
Just thinking about guys that are already in this, and I think now the thing that most entrepreneurs hate thinking about is down rounds. And now they're going to have to really think about down rounds. Right. Like it's either going to be a down round or you don't survive. If you can't get the profitability, you're not going to survive. But I do suspect that this is going to be a good time to start something new because there's still going to be capital out there. And now you get to start at like a reasonable valuation, right? You get to start like at a new base, which is, I think, generally a good thing.
You're always better starting a business in the down times. You're always better starting at the bottom of a recession. If you can make your business work when you're at the bottom of a recession, everything else is roses.
And you flesh out all the shitty ideas. Yeah. Right? So all the shitty ideas that could go raise capital.
But you're also much more disciplined the way you use your money. You build discipline into the business from the get-go.
You don't have choice. Yeah. So I did one thing that I did take away from this too that I thought was interesting, and this is a little, take it with a grain of salt, but thinking about sort of signals for who you want to work with, right? And if you want to start something new, there were a decent amount of investors, and maybe this was posturing, maybe not, but ones that said, look, come Monday. So this is like on Saturday. They're saying, come Monday, I'm going to write a check personally to cover payroll for my portfolio companies if I have to. And that to me was like, all right, they don't have to do that. They're kind of pot committed, so they kind of have to do it.
It's useful.
But seeing the folks that would say that openly, just to put their operators, just to put the entrepreneurs at ease.
It's bridge financing, but it's still useful.
But to say that and say, look, I'm going to go mobilize my personal accounts that aren't at SVB so that I can pay you guys just to keep this going. Right. I was like, okay, those are the kind of people you want to have your back. Right.
By the way, maybe only one VC per bank. Maybe we get the synchronicity out of the problem.
Sure. Yeah. Minimize exposure.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I had a similar-ish, although not quite the same, certainly not the same scale, when the pandemic hit in like February, March of 2020. I had an engineer that I had just sent to New Zealand to work for basically like a year. And he's from the States. And he'd only been there for like a month and a half. And this pandemic hits, and I felt absolutely terrible that I basically stranded this guy on a literal island where, he knew some people, but didn't really know anybody. So he was one of the guys that I called, and I said, look, man, like if you want to get out, you have to get out right now.
Sure.
And I was going to just buy him a ticket, on my Amex personally, just to fly him home. And he kind of laughed, and I'll probably never forget what he said to me. I hope he doesn't listen to this. What he said to me was, he was like, he laughed and said, "You're worried about me. Like, I'm in this lovely land where they're
beautiful.
They're providing, and the New Zealand government provided subsidies to employees that were furloughed.
Yes.
And he said he was more worried about me because I had I had two little kids at the time. So I just thought it was amusing. It definitely put my mind at ease. No longer worried about him trying to get home. So I'll end it with this. Sort of, what should the listener do?
Okay.
Right? How should you think about quantifying bank risk? And I would say that it depends. Personally, I think, you probably don't want to hold more than 50K at any one bank.
That's not possible.
I know it gets hard to scale, but I feel like up to a certain amount.
What am I going to bank with 500 banks? That's not possible.
No. Personally, I'm saying not your operating business.
Yeah.
I feel like you could distribute this up to 10 or 20 banks. You get an accountant to help you manage this. But yeah, look, if you're a business operator, you should probably spend a little time thinking about how you manage your cash, right, and exploring other safer options, and thinking about your treasury. I do think it's interesting to note, and Mark Cuban, who I previously have not been a huge fan of, but gave me some good pause listening to him talk. Like, it's safe to assume that every startup and virtually every business in the U.S. in recent years has quantified this kind of bank risk with a probability of 0.
Right.
And especially startups. No one's thinking about this. And I'm not sure that needs to change given what the Fed's done here. So I wouldn't be in a huge rush, but you might want to, spend a little time being a little smarter about how you manage that.
Also, if you're a VC and you have, say, 60 portfolio companies, whatever you have, have them bank all at different banks.
Yeah, that makes sense, doesn't it?
Spread them out.
Yeah.
And then if you use a payroll company, use a payroll company that uses a different bank from the bank that you use.
Yeah.
Diversity is your friend here.
Sure, which is exactly what the bank doesn't want you to do.
This idea that there's a supermarket of banking, which was the original idea behind Citibank, is a terrible idea.
Terrible idea?
It's a horrible idea. You should be with a lot of different organizations that all do specialty things and do them really well.
Yeah. And that's all I got on SVB. What a fun weekend we had.
I think that's amazing that you paid attention to all of that.
I couldn't not. It was the weirdest thing. I've never felt the story grip me like that in a long time.
2007, 2008 didn't grip you, that you weren't paying attention during?
You know what? Maybe because I understood it less then. I felt like an outsider looking in. Not that I was an insider here, but I felt like I sort of got it. And I was just watching it unfold with sort of not necessarily a strong idea of what was to come, but of just like watching and just being like, oh my God.
It was an enormous experiment. They literally let Lehman Brothers fail. Like, they were just, for some reason, they just decided, let's let one fail and see if that solves the problem. Yeah. And what a disaster. I mean, this was a massive problem.
Excuse me. I have all this toothpaste and I have this tube. I want to put this back in that. Can you tell me how that works?
Can't be done. And what a huge mess. But no, I was sitting around waiting for the Fed, Ben Bernanke, to say, we're not going to let another bank fail.
Yeah.
And the minute he said, we're not going to let another bank fail, I went, fabulous. Time to buy bank stocks.
Exactly. All of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. As fast as you can.
Amazing. Okay. We got to get out of here. But quickly before we do, have you seen or read anything good this last week?
Well, look, as you all know, I live in a cave with two little terrorists that monopolize all of my time.
Yeah.
So I've said this before. I do enjoy listening to the Smartless podcast.
Yeah.
And I listened to both Eugene Levy and the Tracy Ellis Ross episodes last week and really enjoyed them, mainly because it was fun to hear Arnett swing at a bunch of pitches and alternate between knocking them out of the park and just completely whiffing.
That's how improv works.
It reminds me that comedy is hard.
Murderville is my recommendation on Netflix. Oh. Speaking of Will Arnett, he's fantastic.
I heard it's great.
This show is so good. What happens is everybody except the guest star knows the story, the script, and who did it and all of this. Yep. And the guest star has to go along, and at a certain point, they have to figure out who's the murderer. Who did it. It's super fun.
Have you seen the one with the Smartless guys?
I think it's like a
Christmas
season
one.
Ender. It was good. It was really good.
It's supposed to be great.
It was great.
Cool.
That's the episode.
All right. Thank you for joining us for all this nonsense. A truly terrible podcast from The Awful Company. Visit us on the web at nonsense.production. I'm CJ Little.
I'm Jeff Parker.
If you like this program, What's Wrong With You? Please follow, download, subscribe, and like at Apple or Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Podcastindex.org. Special thanks to our floor director, Craig Lewis. By the way, Craig will give $20 to the first person who correctly identifies who Babette is at the beginning of the show.
Write it down and fax it to us, folks.
Yes, fax it to us by all means.
Thanks, Craig. We'll be here every Thursday morning for more nonsense. Please join us.